Well, hey guys, Shanna Kramer here with Creatively Uncorked, and today we're going to paint Winter Cardinal in watercolor. This will be the first watercolor painting that we've done for the Creatively Uncorked members in a little while. So glad you could join us today. I have this little guy here, and this is my original photo, my original image, I should say. It's just an AI image, so it's not perfect. It's got some weird little wonkiness to it that we're going to fix when we paint it. But this is the reference photo. I've already got mine sketched out just as a nice little time saver. And I'll be painting this. I've got a couple of little brushes, watercolor brushes. I just have some rounds. Rounds are kind of my favorite. Just make sure you're using watercolor brushes, whatever you're using, it's just fine. The paper that I have today is 140-pound cold press, and this is Arches. And I also have a big fat fluffy brush that holds a ton of water. This is usually for very large paintings, but I have other reasons to use this one today. So, in the art of keeping things simple, right? I could be using a bunch of fancy watercolor paints today, but I'm just going to keep it easy. I'm going to stick with my prang set here. This is a nice, easy little starter set. Okay, so I'm going to take my water here and my big fat brush, and just going to go ahead and activate some paints. I know I'm going to use the reds, I'm going to use the oranges, might use purples and blues, I don't know yet. I'm actually going to add some water to this white here too. Probably black, maybe, maybe not. I don't really like, yeah, I am going to use a little bit of black in there, for sure. Definitely. Okay, so I'll just let those colors soak a little bit and then we'll get on with it. So if you're using tube watercolors, you can just squeeze out your tube and just use fresh watercolors. That's fantastic. I don't have that, so I'm going to reactivate my dry paint just by adding a little bit of water to it, letting them sit for just a minute. So these paints right now are in, let's see, what do you call it? These are in pans. Okay, my little pans of watercolor, of dried watercolors. When I use my color on my painting, I'm typically going to be picking it up from the pan, adding it to the well. This cover of my paints in this case is the well, and this is where I can mix my colors, prep them for putting on the canvas, or sorry, on the paper. So start here, then go here, then go to your paper. This little tiny fluffy brush here is a really great one for watercolor. It doesn't hold the point very well, but it holds a lot of water and has some spring to it. This is an oldie but goodie. This brush has obviously seen some better days here. This is a Grumbacher Golden Edge Round, and that's about all I can read out of it. And then this, just a smaller round, just for some nice details. Okay, so I want to start with my background on this guy. And because I have my big fluffy brush, I'll start with this. Okay, so I just picked up some water, just shake the brush out, and whatever water's left, that's what I'm going to be using. So I just want to make sure that I've got a lighter area behind the bird, and then I can go darker on the outsides. There is some snow on the branches. I'm just going to get the background wet. I'm avoiding the snow, avoiding the bird, although it wouldn't hurt to paint a little bit into the bird. Yeah, maybe I will. Maybe I'll just paint a little bit over into the bird. What the heck, right? Do you want to avoid the snow? There. Okay, I have another little area down here, but I can't do that quite yet. So what I want to start with, I have this background that I want to have a little bit more. Let's try some blue. And a little bit of, let's try a little bit of brown. So we have kind of a grayish color there. And just gonna do some vertical streaks. Pick up a little bit more color, a little bit more blue, a little bit more brown, a little bit more blue, maybe even a touch of purple. What the heck? It's right there. Okay. All right, so I've got a little bit of color in my background. This is going to be faded back quite a bit compared to what you see right now. So I just want to take a slightly darker color. I hate to use black so soon in the painting, but oh well. I could take more blue. I could take even kind of a turquoise blue. That might be nice. Might be. Okay. And stop. All right. So while I'm working in my background here, I have a couple of details that I want to add in there. For example, I've got some branches and I've got some berries that are faded off. So I don't want to go too overboard on those, but let's add some branches. Yeah, I don't really like that brown. Let's darken it. Okay, a little there. Let's get into some red. Red for those berries. I want to use more of a cool red. These are going to be in the background. A thick red also. So let's see here. I put some berries. Gotta be thicker red than that, I think. Here, I'll switch to a smaller brush. And when I say thicker red, what I'm talking about is it should have less water than the background. Really easy to do if you're using liquid watercolors, not so much if you're using reconstituted dried colors, but that's okay. That's what we have. Okay. And while we're at it, I'm just going to take a little tiny bit of water on the brush and just hold it way up high. Tap, tap. And sprinkle some snow. All right, let's move on. Now I've got my top background done, and now I've got the bottom to do. Same deal, I guess I'm going to go right over the top of the bird. I want to avoid the snow. And yes, I do have my board at a little bit of a tilt here, just so the gravity can help out my painting. I just have a little box, a little brush box sitting underneath my painting. Okay, I think I can go over most of these berries. I don't think that's going to be a problem. The only thing I really want to avoid is the snow. And I know you've probably heard about using resists and that sort of thing where you can put it on your paper and then paint over it and then peel off the resist. And well, you can do that if you want to. I know watercolors are all about the advanced planning, but I kind of feel like too much advanced planning can take away from the spontaneity of your painting. Okay, I know I have a few areas in here that need to be touched up. All right, but this brush is too big, so I'll just set that aside for now. Nope, I guess I'm going to hang on to it. Okay, I'm going back into the blue-brown combo. A little more blue. More blue yet. Maybe even a little purple. Okay. All right, now I'm going to switch to a smaller brush here with a little bit finer point, and I'm just going to get this background in here. Just this little area. I can go over the berries, but I don't want to go over the snow, so that's just what I'm trying to do is avoid the snow. Oop, and I was not entirely successful. Well, moving on. All right. So this, I'm going to let this dry for just a few minutes. So go ahead and hang out, watch paint dry if you'd like to. I'm just going to check something over here. Okay. All right, so while we're waiting for this to dry, this is a painting I'm working on for the Red River Watercolor Society. We have if you're in the Fargo Moorhead area and you like painting with watercolor, or if you like plein air painting, check out the Red River Watercolor Society. We have an event coming up. This will be December 12th, 23, and we'll be doing this as a paint along as a group. So that'll be fun. It's something that we've been doing the past few years for our members. So this will be a fun one. This is also going into the Creatively Uncorked membership. And if you're not currently a member, you can check out members.creativelyuncorked.com. That's members.creativelyuncorked.com. So you can check that out, and that has hundreds of tutorials, some watercolor, mostly acrylic, and there are a few other bonus features in there as well. Checking out my painting. Okay. So I know that background isn't anywhere near dry, but is it dry enough? If you're painting along, you have the option of renewing your water at any point. I'm going to let mine go until I absolutely need to have clean water, which may or may not be today. So I'm happy with the background so far. Let's see if I can do some little touch-ups in here while this is drying. Perfect time for some touch-ups. Again, just avoiding the snow as much as possible. In this paint set, in this praying paint set, I do have white paint. I may use it. Splattering some white paint on is, whoopsies, a really great way to get some snow texture. Should we try it? There, just trying to get the rest of my background. You got to do all these little touch-ups while it's still wet. Okay, I'm going to let that go. That's going to need some touch-ups at there. I'll probably use white in here. Okay, let's see. Picking up a little bit of white, mixing it up so it's kind of thick. Oh boy. Oh man. Let's see if it works. Little splatter, little tap. Background's still a little wet, so these should spread out a little like snowflakes. Work beautifully down here. Ooh, okay. That one went a little nuts. I got a little paint all over my studio, so I'm just going to go ahead and rinse the brush and stop that. An awful lot of painting with watercolor is waiting for the paint to dry. So good chance to practice your patience. Good chance for me to practice my patience. While we're at it, why don't we just mix up some colors that we're going to need. Okay, so I know I've got some red that I'm going to need. This brush is not a favorite. Let's see. I have a lot of watercolor brushes that I haven't used in a very long time. Let's see what we can use here. Hmm. Well, let's try that. Slightly damaged from being unused. Take care of your watercolor supplies, folks. I switched to oil painting about a year ago, and this is one of the first times I've touched watercolor since then. Okay, I'll do a little brown, little blue, which is similar to the background, yeah. And this is going to be my branch color. More brown. Heck, more purple. Dry. So when I press my brush on the paper towel like this, it's to soak up the water, but still leave most of the paint on the brush. Okay, so now I have a dry brush. I'll try a dry brushing technique. Yep, I think we're gonna need to fill it in with the color first. Fun technique, but hmm. Hey, let's just make it purple. Why not? This is our cardinal. This is our tree. We can make it any color we want. Maybe you're not a fan of purple and you want to make yours branch green, blue, red. Maybe not red. We're going to make the cardinal red. Okay, I'm trying to get as close to the edge of the background as I can without, going too far into it because it will bleed. The background is still wet. Okay. All right, so now that we've got that purple on there, let's switch to some brown. Now this is more of a dry brush brown. I'm just dragging some color across here. All this is going to do is just make my branch a little bit more interesting. Good to go. All right. Let's see. Are we ready for some berries yet? No. Are we ready for some? Oh, got some white on there. I'll get that off. Just taking a damp brush and just scrubbing out those areas of white paint. Because when you mix white and red, it's going to turn pink. And I don't really want pink in my red cardinal. If you can see this, the lighter areas are going to be a little bit more orange. The darker areas a little more purple, but there's no pink on here. All right, let's start with okay, I'm just going to pick a spot, work my way down. I think I'm going to start with top down. Maybe. So this orange here, this is my light red. Okay, and then I'll switch over to some red red. A little bit, and then I'll come into some purple red. Maybe some red purple right over here. No, I think I want it to be more blue purple. Okay. Oh my gosh. That's another reason I don't do watercolor too much anymore. I always drop the brush. If I'm standing at an easel and drop the brush, it doesn't land on my painting typically, so that's why oils work out better. Okay, now we've got some nice little we can add more texture to that later, but right now we've got the color down and that's pretty good. All right, now I'll move on to this little cheek area. The cheek area is It's going to be really light, a little bit of orange on top, purple on the bottom, and light in the middle. So I'll start with the light, just a little bit of red, and I'll just fill in this whole cheek area. Okay, and then I'll come back up with some orange on the top of the cheek, right down in the front. Okay, wipe that off. Actually, I'm going to switch to this one is a thinner brush. It does better detail and it doesn't hold very much water, which can be good, can be bad. Okay, I think that's working. Okay, back to the brush that holds water. And then I'll come down here and I'll just move on to the next, which is these couple of areas back here, which are pretty gray, pretty purple, but still on the red side of things. So rinse my brush. I'll take some purple, some reddish purple. Okay, a little more blue than that, I think. Okay. So now I'm just going to fill in this area. It's kind of watery. I added a touch more water to it. And I'll fill these both in as one just because they're very similar colors. Okay. So once we've got that background color in, then we can add tiny little touches of orange right in here. Just little, not too much touches of orange because we're mostly going to have the purple. It's more blue. Let's do more blue. Okay. And that should be a little more gray, but I'm kind of hesitant. To gray down purple, you put yellow in it because it's the opposite on the color wheel, so we just use opposite colors. To gray things down, switch to my little fine point detail brush here, I think. And a little more purple. All right, looking good. We may go back and add more details to this, but if we can kind of slowly build up the detail as we work through each section, we may not need to. Although we probably will. All right, so now we'll come back down here into the belly. And this is going to be very orange on top and very cool red and slightly purple on the bottom. So we'll start out with the medium red, watering it just a little to thin it out. Okay, we've got our bird on there. And actually, let's just go ahead and fill in the rest of this wing just like we're working on it all together at once. All right. Just going to want to blend that a little bit because when we bring the darker color over it, that is, we have a sharp line there that is going to show. Okay. There, just blur it out on the edge. All right, now back down here, we're back into our orange again. Orange, our highlight color. And I might even add a little bit of touch of yellow because that's really bright right there. The color I don't want to add is white. Okay, moving kind of quickly with this because you've got to get the blends in there while your paint is wet. Can't let that dry. Okay, that brush in the water, and then I'm taking my fine detail brush again and going into the purple. And this is a really reddish purple this time. So I'll just add a little red to it. Okay, not too much red because, well, now look what I did. And I got a little stray paint there. Okay, so coming back in with my darks, and I've got darks here. Oops, not dark enough. Okay, darks here, darks here. Let's get some red in that. Okay, this is going to be a case of do as I say, not as I do, possibly. Probably just trying to get too much detail into that, the bird main body there, and it's getting a little weird looking. So slow down there. Try and even it out. There. Get any little weird edges out there. There. Just going to take a paper towel, press right down so it soaks up all of the water right from that spot. Hopefully that won't bleed out from the bird again. Hopefully. There. Finger painting a little bit okay. Okay. I'm going to tilt my board a little bit here, see if I can get that water to move around a little bit. All right, I'm going to let that go and move on to the wing. Now the underside of the wing here, pretty darn dark, practically black, pretty dark. But instead of black, I'm going to take dark purple. What the heck, a little bit of yellow. Mix it in my red. Well, maybe not. Maybe I do actually have to use a little bit of black. Not a lot, just a little. There. Okay, I'll just add some little feathers in here without going too overboard. And now, as long as we have our black, our really dark red anyway, I'm mixing black and red to get this color. Punch up the color in the wing a little bit. That really should be a little more red. That may or may not have been a good idea. We're about to find out. Because if I just added too much water to it, I'm going to get some strange blooms. But for now, I'm just going to call those a design concept. And move on with my dark red. Coming up here to the face. Just going to work in small, small sections. Just kind of tap, tap, tap. Because while some of this does need to be dark, some of it is going to have highlights as well. And just picking up that little bit of red, a little bit of black. Just add a little water to this. Just making some small little detail marks and then letting the paint blend. The paint underneath is still wet, so this is blending. Okay, coming back up, add some darker areas on the top where it's starting to lighten up quite a bit. Okay, and one very important dark area is going to be right in the eye. Now it's very important to leave the highlights because even with white paint, these highlights are going to be tough to get back. Get highlights on this side and highlights on this side. All right, that's about all we can do with the eye for now. We can make a few other adjustments to it later on if we're ready, but for right now, that paint is just too wet. Want to wait a little bit with that beak because the black around it is too wet. Might not be the look we're going for. So now I'm back to my slightly more absorbent brush. Hey, check it out. It's a Becker art brush. Huh. Dunk it in water. We're coming back up here with the tail now. Maybe I'll just take a tiny little bit of red in this water. So we're not using just water. And we'll come back into this red black. Ooh, mighty dark. And let's punch that up with some good bright red. Ooh, I changed my mind. Let's punch it up with some orange. Can I do power red and orange? Bet I can. All right, I'm gonna let that go, let that dry a little bit, and move on to some berries. So for the berries, I'm going to switch to my smallest brush. And this is the one that holds a lot of water. It's squirrel hair, very worn. I can't really tell what that word is, but I'm sure you'll find these online. All right, back to my reds. Okay. So I'm just going to pick a berry here. These are a little blurry in the background, which is fine. I'm just going to fill in the areas that are in the red range. And that's kind of thick. I think I'd like to see more water in that. Still going here. Just going to do a couple of berries at once. This, again, we're going to do some blending, which you do need to do while the paint is wet, but I think I can paint fast enough to get that done. If you can't, just do one berry at a time. All right. Take some orange. Do some highlights in those berries. Maybe even some yellow orange over here. Highlight. Highlight, highlight. And a little water to this so I can push some of the other color out of the way. That red got a little thick, so I'm just going to lift up a little color here. Okay, so I'm just using this yellowy orange to push some of that red out of the way, blending while that paint is still wet. I did have a question one time on how to blend watercolor. You have to do it when it's wet. That's the trick. That's it. That's all. Blend it when it's wet. Okay, so now I'm just kind of dipping into this dark purple here. And while the paint is wet again, I'm just adding that dark spot to those berries. And these are starting to get dry, so I'm going to move on. And I'll come down here and do the same berries the same way. I'll just do small groups of them at once. So I'll start with a little bit more watery red this time. Those got a little thick. So just a watery red. Paint the berries. Not the snow. And these 4 berries are touching, so I'll just go ahead and paint all 4 of these at once. So I'm just filling in with my background red. Coming back with my highlight color, which is a yellowy orange. There. Just drop some of that in on top. Let it push that red out of the way. And we'll get some shadow color, which is the purple again. A little bit thicker purple, I think. There we are. Okay. Moving on. I think that's working out all right. So I'll just keep doing that method. So I'll take that slightly watery red again. And to make this work, you have to use a brush that can hold water. This brush is a squirrel hair. I don't know if it's synthetic. Probably is synthetic. Synthetic squirrel hair. And it holds a lot of water. Very nice. Taking that light color again. Punch in a couple of highlights. Get some purple for those shadows. Lovely. You know, I could use some more shadows in this one here. I wonder if now is a good time for that. Let's find out. Eh, maybe, maybe not. I'll let it go. All right, back over to here. Here's a nice little single berry all on its own. Start with red. Do the highlights in orange. Shadows in purple. Okay, moving along. These berries are pretty fun to do. Once you get the hang of it, you just kind of, it's pretty easy to just berry all day. Branches, leaves are all kind of like that too. Just trees in general. Once you start painting trees, or once I start painting trees, it's pretty hard to stop because you can just branch them to death forever. There's the red, orange highlights, and purple shadows. And I think I want to try a little bit thicker red here. Still got a little purple in it. That's okay. Just want to make some separations between some of these berries. And I want to punch up that red. Is now the time to do that? I don't know. Maybe not. But I'm doing it anyway. All right. Looks good. Stopping there. So that some of the next things that I have a few more details. I can do a little more details and some background branches if I want to. I definitely have a beak left, some detail on the eye. I have all these twigs. We'll go back to the reference here. See, there's one of those weird things that's got a foot on a foot. AI does that. That's why we're just drawing our own thing. We're just using this as our reference. It's not our final picture. So we'll just scribble in some branches here. We'll do some feet. We'll do these little cherry stems, berry stems. I know they're not cherries. And then we'll add some dimension to that snow. So how are we doing up here? Not quite dry. All right, let's add some feet. So the feet are going to be kind of a little bit blue. So take this thin blue. Okay, and I want to keep it loose, keep it flowy, so I'm barely hanging onto this brush at all. Barely have any paint on it. And I'll take a little bit of a nice warm color over here. So I'll pick up some orange to go in that blue. Still blue on the brush, so I'm just kind of blending, mixing the colors here. Okay, it's got a couple of feet now. Only two. Our bird will have only 2 feet. Okay, and I might even try out a little bit thinner brush here. Okay, here's one that I haven't used very often. This is a liner. So I'll try that on those stems. So on the stems, I guess I'm going to go back to the kind of the browny purpley combination again. Thinner, thinner. Okay, and let's make some branches. Just a little more brown. More water. Gotta keep it thin so it flows. Hmm, that's not so bad. A little bit thinner yet, I think. A little more water. Because otherwise it'll get dark, and watercolor is always going to dry lighter than what you see here, so it's not going to be as dark as you think. Still can be tricky to the eye. A little more brown. Hmm, I think that's not so bad. I think that worked out pretty well. And this branch up here, boy, I'm not sure if I want to. What do you think? Do we need more detail on that branch, or should we just let it go? Tell you what, let's work on that beak and we'll come back and think about it. So for the beak, I'm switching back to my fine point, the one that doesn't hold very much water. And I'll start out with a nice orange. Okay, so we'll do this orangey red. Oh, and just a quick look at the reference for you. This is what we're after. So there's a lot of orange in this beak. We get down into a little purpley reds toward the bottom. Okay, that detail brush does not put water down nicely, so I'm switching brushes again. I keep wanting to use it and I keep switching away from it. On to some more orange. See if I can pick up some of this color because I think it just got really heavy. So I'm just using a thirsty brush, which means it's a damp brush that I've dried off. So now it's ready to pick up water. And when I go over the painting, it'll pick up water wherever I put it. All right, nice. Let's take a little bit darker red. And then a little bit of orange. All right, looking pretty good. What do you think? It's definitely going to need a few more details, I think, over the feathers, but that's just fine. All right, back down to this branch. Do we need to make that any darker? The only reason we would want to make it any darker is to help that snow pop. So what do you think? Is the snow popping enough? I don't want to go overboard. Maybe right here by the bird, because that bird is kind of our focus point, so we'll make sure we have a high contrast here, lights and darks. All right, I'll leave that be. Let's see what we can do about making that snow a little. Actually, you know what? I just want to punch up that beak, like punch it up. Boom. How's that? That's better. That's got a lot more color. See, already it looks better. Just a couple of dots of color and changes the whole thing. Okay, I kind of think I want to leave the background alone. Ooh, you know what? We have this little guy's tail back here. Here's one of those wonky parts again because it was an AI image. So he had this really weird wonky tail that the background comes down here and then the snow kind of starts off the edge of its leg. just just a weird deal. You just can't trust the AI images. So, but it's a good reference. We'll use it for our own. It's fine. We are smarter than the AI and we know how to make two legs on birds. Okay. All right, got the back of his wing. Thinking about that snow, we may want to use a little bit of white paint on that, but I'm going to avoid it if I can. Let's see. I know one thing that would help is by making this background a little bit darker, but I can't touch that right now. But yeah, I could do some darker areas around some of those berries, like if I darken this area, but would it take too much away from the bird? That is the question. All right. Okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm just taking some water here. I'm going over that background again quickly so I'm not blurring it too much. Okay. I'll come back with a darker color. I had my blues and browns in the back. Oh, we can do a little more blue. Well, I think it looks a little more like snow now, but now we have some touch-ups. I say that like like you screwed up too. Actually, it's just me. Got some touch-ups. Um, yeah, I think that actually made a pretty big difference. And it will lighten when it dries, so I'm not super worried about that. Only a little worried. Okay. So down over here, same deal. There, scribble out those edges. Yeah, not so bad. I could even add some darker edges right up here where it connects to the snow because I really just want to offset that, just to punch up the contrast on the edge there. There. Okay. All right. I'm not going to mess around with the background too much more. It'll start drawing too much attention to it. I don't want that. The cardinal is the star of the show, so let's add a few more details to that cardinal. We don't really have a lot of necessary details at this point. It's just kind of some fluff and feathers. So we can do a little like fuzziness over here. We can do a little texture over here, and we can punch up that color. This got a little flat when it dried, so we can punch up that color a little. Down in here, we can add some more darker details, and on the tail we can. Okay. Just liking the way that orange was working out, so let's try that. How it's some pow. Oh, got it a little bit into the background there. So be it. Okay, back to that trick with the picking up the extra paint. And the bleeding out here, I'm gonna let that go. That's just connecting the painting to the background, and I don't see a problem with it. Throwing my colors around. Going back to a small brush. Well, this is supposed to be a simple painting. I think we might be going a little overboard. Getting too hung up in the details here. Okay, let it go. Let it be. Okay, the bird is looking fine. What other details do you think? Oh, how about that tail? Actually, I don't think the tail looks bad. and I don't think that helped that much. So I tell you what, I'm going to bring in a little bit more dark into here just because that's part of my impact area. Okay. And then I think for the last thing, I'll take a little bit of blue for my snow shadows. Make sure I have all the extra water sopped up off of my brush there. I'm just going to come down into the blue shadows, into the snow shadows. Just kind of scribble on some of that blue. Get some little bit of shadows here on some of that snow. Not too much though. I don't want it to start blending in with the background. Don't want to have to darken the background again. All right. I think I'm going to call it. So here we have it, Winter Cardinal in watercolor. So thanks for painting along. This is Shanna Kramer with Creatively Uncorked. If you'd like to paint more like this, check out our membership at members.creativelyuncorked.com. Feel free to join. You can download individual paintings if you want to. We have a few on the YouTube just to keep you going if you don't have the membership. And I will see you next week.